Alright, welcome to video number 10. We're going to get back to the CSS here in a minute. I know that last video was a little short, but I think you guys will learn more if you watch me work through the HTML on my page and watch me run into the issues in practice rather than just listing HTML and telling you what it is. And it's all there listed in chapter 2, and you should be good to go, I think. Alright. So let's go back to my page here. Last we left off, we had this one CSS style that we had written, and we had applied it to the H1, which is this guy down here. Alright, and if I go to take a look at the page real quick, so we have a quick reminder, it was this blue header that we were playing with, and it picked up the color and the right font and the right size. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about what I mentioned in an earlier video, which is the Cascade and how that works. So right now, we have our CSS linked externally, meaning it's coming from a different page entirely, and we've linked to it using the code listed here. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of more methods of adding CSS to your page, one being embedded, and the other being inline. And we'll talk a little bit about what those are and when to use them, when not to use them. Inline in particular is one you probably won't use at all, rarely if at all. So I'm going to give the video a chance to catch up here, and I'm going to add here an embedded style, and I'm just going to type it out real quick, and I'll explain to you what I'm typing out. Okay, so what I'm typing here is a style tag. Let me close it, with a type attribute. My mouse needs to catch up here. And I'm telling it that it's a text. The type is text and it's CSS, what I'll be writing in the style. Alright. And what I'm going to do to show you what's happening here is I'm going to copy this exact style that we had before, the CSS rule here, for the H1. So I'm going to copy this real quick, and I'm going to paste it in between my style tags here. And there you go. This is an embedded style now. So now it's embedded because it's inside of our HTML document. Okay. So let me give my mouse a chance to catch up again. Must have been saying something here. I'm going to change the color of my H1 here. Change it from blue to red. Alright, I'm going to save that, and I'm going to refresh my page, and it changed to red. Alright, so why did the HTML decide, okay, I'm going to go with this red color instead of going with this blue color, even though we've told it to go with the blue one in the top here? Well, the reason being, and the way I like to think of it, is the embedded style is closer to the content than the external style, because the external style is on a separate page, of course. So it's picking what's closest to it. So the embedded style, if you have a style that conflicts with something in your external, will always override your external. Okay, so I'll say that one more time. If you have a CSS rule in your embedded that conflicts with your external, the embedded will always win. Okay. Now I'm going to write out here what is known as an inline style. This one's written slightly differently than the embedded or the external. Okay, but it's the same theory here. So I'm going to change the color here. Whoops. And I'm going to change this back to blue. Alright. And you'll notice that it's written a little differently because the selector technically is already in there. It's the element, the H1, and then we just write the style. But the property :value semicolon still applies. Just you don't need the curly brackets. So that's an inline style right there. Okay. So now we have 3 on our page, and if I go to refresh my browser, it goes back to blue. Okay, and it goes back to blue for the same reason as before that I mentioned. The this color blue now is actually inside of the H1 element and right next to the content that we're going to be changing. Therefore, it's going to override the embedded and override the external. Alright, another thing you're going to notice is that down here in the inline style, I didn't add a font and I didn't add a font size. Alright, I only added a color. So where is it picking up the other two? Alright, so how is it deciding this? So to demonstrate this, I'm going to make a change here because I do have the font listed here and the font size listed here, and I'm going to show you how all three can work together here. So I'm going to delete this font size here. Okay. And just to prove that it's working, I'm going to change the font size on my external. Okay, so I'm going to save that document and save my index here. And go back to the file and reload. And notice that the font now has changed to a smaller font. So what happened? Basically what happened is that it picked up this font size and it didn't pick up, and it picked up this font family, and it picked up this color. Alright, reason being is that it when it started, it said, alright, so what do I need here? You're telling me to color this blue. Alright, so it colored that blue. And then it said, alright, well, you're not giving me anything else, so what else? Is there anywhere else where an H1 tag is being used for a style? And it says yes. So in my embedded, I have the color red, which is going to override because the blue is closer. It says, alright, well, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to ignore that. But you have a font family listed here that I can use, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Alright. Now it's going to go to this external and say, well, there's the color blue, and I've already used that, so I'm going to change that to nothing. And font size is listed here. And then the font family is also listed on the embedded, so I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to use this font size because this font size isn't listed anywhere else. Alright, so now it's a combination. It's this font size with this font family and the color blue. Okay, so that's how you can work with the three together. Now this is going to happen rarely, but it's important to know how it works in case you accidentally override something and you are using various types of CSS in the future. It's just a good thing to understand if you see any errors that maybe something is overriding something that you didn't want it to. Okay. In general, though, you're going to want to stick to just external and not use the embedded or inline. Okay. Reason being, and I'm going to scroll down here in a second. This inline here is really fairly useless. I'm going to delete it here. Reason being is if, let's say, you wanted to apply an inline style to all of your H1s on every single page, and then one day you decided, you know what, I'm going to make them green, and you needed to go make all of them green, you would then have to go change that on every single H1 tag on all of your pages, and that would be a big waste of time and a huge headache every time you needed to make an update to a site. The thing you could use it for is to test things really quick. Like, let's say, oh, I did want to see what this header looked like in green, but I didn't want to change it in my external. I happen to be here in my HTML. I'm going to add the inline really quick. If I can paste it back in, I'm going to add the inline really quick and just check to see what it looks like. Oh, whoops, this is the whole thing. So that's what you could use it for, right? You could just type out color green, see what it looks like. If you like it, you can then apply it to your either embedded or to your external. Okay, but don't use it on a regular basis. So what about embedded? What would I use this for? Again, similar to inline, you wouldn't use this for all of your CSS. You don't want to embed your CSS on every page for the exact same reason that if you need to change something, you would then need to change it on every single page. So why would I use this? Well, one reason is if you had a specific style that was only being used on this single page, that wasn't being used anywhere else on your website for some reason, you could use this instead of writing it in your external CSS and save yourself some space on your CSS file. But if your CSS file isn't huge and you have no reason to separate all of your CSS out, then really embedded is something you don't want to use either. So I would stick with external. Okay, and for the remainder of this site that I'll be building, I'll probably be only using external CSS. Okay. If for any reason I need to use an embedded one, we shall use it. So I'm going to change this back to what it was before, because we actually, I think we nailed that with what we had on the Photoshop file. So I'll save that. I'm going to go back to my index file here in a second. Alright. And I'm going to show you one other thing here. Right now we have this one external style sheet. Right? Now, similar to how you can have external and embedded and inline, you can actually have multiple external. So I can take this code here, once I have it written out. I'm just going to copy and paste a couple times below here. So why would I need multiple external style sheets? Well, one thing you could do with multiple external style sheets is separate out your CSS in case it gets too long. On your CSS file, right now we only have one rule. But CSS files tend to get really long. You can have up to 30, 40, 50 rules. Huge websites can have more than that. And at some point, that gets really long to scroll through, even with comments and separating things out. So what you could do is you can separate your CSS out into different areas. Okay? So what areas would you separate them out in? Well, really, it's up to you. Whatever makes sense. You could say maybe a layout file, right, where you have all of your layout on one CSS document, and you could name it layout, right? So things like your divs would be on one layout. Maybe one file has all of your H1, your Ps, all of your other elements listed, so just your general styles, colors, fonts, that kind of thing. And then maybe one that we probably will use in this class later on is a print.css file. You don't have to name it print, but I'm going to name it print for the purposes of this. You'll notice we have this media over here, and so far we've only used screen. The author uses this media all as well. But we've used screen, meaning that anytime that the CSS is used, it's going to be used for a monitor. All right. But you can change this to media equals print. And what that's going to do is that whatever CSS page is linked within this here is going to be used whenever the user that's viewing your website prints the document. So why would I want to do that? Well, when someone prints your document, you might want to use a print style to simplify your styles. Maybe make all your fonts colored black. Maybe have the fonts not be very stylistic. Maybe take out background images so a user can print it and it's printer friendly, right? Usually when someone prints out your website, they don't want to print out your backgrounds and that kind of thing. They just want to print out the content. All right. So we'll probably use a print style sheet in the final for this class, but it is not necessary to have multiple style sheets for everything else. Okay. And for the purposes of moving forward here, I'm going to delete these here in a second. Let the video catch up, so we don't get confused by these. I must have been saying something else when I recorded this originally. Alright. So that gets deleted. Oh, I guess I left my print CSS in there. Alright, so we're all good to go. We're going to get back into writing CSS here. So I'm going to change this back to main CSS and get to styling the rest of this page. There it goes. I thought I deleted it. Alright, see you guys in the next video.